been on the hunt for the perfect travel kit since I started making these videos. Every time I thought I had something, there would always be something that would bother me. But now I think I'm finally getting close to what I consider my ideal travel setup. And I thought it'd be cool to share with you guys what I'm currently rocking and what I will be rocking when I end up going to Europe in 3 weeks. Just a quick disclaimer, I'm aware that these kind of gear setup videos do promote consumerism, but that's not what I'm trying to encourage, and hopefully that isn't the message that comes across. I've been making videos since I was in high school, and what improved my footage was never really the gear, but just doing it more. And I want to highlight that, content creating and filmmaking is a hobby for me. So honestly, you don't really need high quality gear. And for me, this is where I've landed on for my current setup. Let's talk about the most important thing, which is criteria. I recently learned the word maximizer, and I feel like that kind of describes me. Specifically, in regards to spec chasing, I would always try to research getting the best value gear. And while there is a lot of benefit to doing that, I think for me, I was skipping the most important question, which is what are my own criterias and what do I need? So an example of this is you can use the most expensive setup with the most expensive gear, but if the setup's too heavy and bulky and you don't actually use it at all, then what's the point? And for me, I thought I needed the lowest aperture to get the most cinematic footage, needing both a wide and a zoom lens to cover all angles. In reality, I didn't really bring it out much. Specifically in my last trip to Japan, since I went with a bigger group, carrying around a big setup just felt super cumbersome. And what ended up happening was I didn't really capture much footage, and I do kind of regret that. So when I got back from that trip, I had to sit down and figure out what my own criteria were based on how I actually shoot. And the trade-off is being okay with a slightly lower quality footage, less range, but you get less friction when it comes to recording footage. So just to reiterate, figure out your own criteria first. If you can't live without the best quality, 60 frames per second or all that, build your setup around that. But for me, I feel like the trade-off is worth it. So let's start with the camera body. I'm currently using the Sony a7C II to record this shot. Basically, it's a full frame camera that's good for hybrid shooting, so photos and videos. I personally wanted a full frame camera because I do use this camera for client shoots. I felt that the bigger sensor was worth it for me. But just to quickly gloss over some pros, it's super small and portable. I got it in silver, so it looks kind of retro. It shoots in S-Log3, so I can color grade it. Overall, I have no complaints with this body. I feel like it's perfect for my use case. I can't imagine upgrading or changing this body anytime soon. Let's talk about the lens, which is something I recently got for this upcoming Europe trip, and I'm using it right now. So this is the Sony 24mm f2.8. Let me switch out this lens so you can see what it looks like. Alright, so I'm currently filming on the Sony 16mm f1.8, but this is the Sony 24mm f2.8. Look how small this is. My hand for reference. It's basically a tiny pancake style lens that weighs around 160 grams. Paired up with the Sony a7C II, feels more like a hobby camera rather than like a shooting rig. And this is an issue I've been thinking about for a while. So I got the Sony 16mm f1.8 because it was considered like the ultimate vlogging lens. It's like super wide, as you can tell. I'm not that far from the camera, but it's capturing like a lot of the environment in the shot. But the problem with this is when I wanted to go in for some more detail shots, the lens was too wide. So what I did in my last trip was I carried this lens with me. This is the Sony 28-70mm, and this lens is really good for capturing detail shots, and I also use it for work, so it's the main reason why I have it. But when I was out and about, having to switch lenses just to capture detail shots and wide shots got really annoying. If I was out and about and had to think really hard about what shot I wanted, especially when you're traveling with other people, I just ended up not recording anything at all. So I was looking for lenses that could kind of do it all. Problem with those kind of lenses, first off, it's really hard to find one size fits all, but the main issue I have with those lenses is that they were really heavy. Honestly, like even though the 16mm f1.8 was considered like a light prime lens, I still kind of felt that it was a little too big for me to just pull out and start shooting. That's why I landed on the Sony 24mm. Let me just go back to this lens. So as you can tell, it doesn't capture as much of the environment into the shot. However, it's just wide enough where if I hold the camera, so this is like my hand reaching out to the camera, capture like a talking shot that isn't too zoomed in, I feel. But also the Sony a7C II has a crop feature, so let me just turn that on, where it punches into a 1.5 times crop. This is really close, I want to change it back. And so for me, it was kind of just learning to live with small enough that I'm willing to bring this camera everywhere. And ultimately, bringing my camera everywhere is what I'm looking for in my travel setup. So the next thing I want to talk about is what bag I'm using. So for a bit of context, I've used so many bags. I used this GU leather bag with this camera insert for a while. I've also used this camera insert with the Uniqlo crossbody bag, which I don't own anymore. I've used the TomTok 40 litre backpack as an everyday bag once, and I used this Ulanti backpack for my last trip to Japan. I also have the small La Mer croissant bag that I use for everyday stuff. So I think it's safe to say that I've tried basically all the options out there. But what's interesting is that every single one of them had maybe one or two things that held them back from being my ideal travel setup. Basically, to summarize all the pain points I have in my other bags, starting with the GU bag, it was a good shoulder bag, but there was no real compartments inside. So organizing things was a mess, and stuff like my passport didn't really have its own little space to live in. Also, because it doesn't come with any padding, over time the shoulder starts getting a bit sore. But the pros are that it looks really good, and because it's a shoulder bag, it's really easy to access the camera. But the cons I mentioned earlier were just holding it back from being my ideal camera bag. Next up are the backpacks. Whilst they solve all the cons that the GU bag has, the biggest con is that it's still a backpack. So reaching for your camera is slightly more inconvenient, and also the footprint is obviously going to be bigger. So basically have a turtle shell on your back, and that does take up space and gets kind of annoying when you're moving around a lot. So I was really excited when K&F Concept reached out to me and asked me to pick a product on their page. When I saw this 10 litre sling bag, I was super hopeful that this could be the travel bag that I was looking for. Obviously, disclaimer, they did send me this product for free to test out, but everything I say is my thoughts. What I love about this bag is that it's the perfect size. It has the portability of a shoulder bag, but also has all the functionalities of a backpack with a few trade-offs. For my use case scenario, I feel like it covers everything that I need. Carry my camera, an extra lens, and below here a tripod if I need it. It also has these two pockets to hold my water bottles and maybe an umbrella if I need it. It has a back zip, so your passport or your important documents can live here. And one of the coolest parts is that you'd think you open the bag with these buckles. However, these buckles are used to hold a tripod. The way you do open it is through the back. Sound kind of weird to say. And also inside, it's super spacious. It has these dividers to help organize my space, but for a shoulder bag, I feel like it's super spacious. It can hold a lot of things so that if I do need to hold stuff other than my camera, definitely have the room for it. And from what it seems, it solves all the problems and pain points I had with my previous setup. So definitely gonna put this to the test when I go to Europe. I guess my philosophy with my travel kit is keeping it as minimal as possible to remove that friction from capturing the moment, because to me, I feel like bad footage is still footage, and that's better than nothing. And I'm actually bringing this bag out with me to meet up a fellow content creator. You might have seen his content before, but I'm super excited. It's the first time I'm meeting someone that's kind of in the same space that I am, and I'll bring you guys along using my new camera travel setup.